Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into the Bihar election results that absolutely nobody saw coming. We're talking about a genuine political shockwave.
All right, let's just start with one single number, the most important number from this entire election, 202. Got it? Just lock that number in your head for a second.
So why 202? Well, that's how many seats the winning alliance snagged, out of 243. Now, to put that into perspective, you only need 122 for a majority. So, yeah, this wasn't just a win. It was an absolute, undeniable landslide.
So the big question is, how on earth did the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA, pull this off? I mean, look at those numbers. They left the Mahagathbandhan, the MGB, in the dust with just 34 seats. All the exit polls were calling for a real nail-biter, but what we got was a total blowout. So let's dig in and figure out why.
Okay, let's get right into it. When you really break it all down, this historic win for the NDA wasn't an accident. It comes down to 5 key winning factors, 5 strategic moves that the opposition simply had no answer for.
Factor number 1, and this might just be the most important one, the silent wave of women voters. I mean, just look at this chart. The turnout gap here is huge. You've got 71.6% of women turning out to vote compared to just 62.8% of men. That's not just a small difference, that's a political tide.
And you know, that kind of overwhelming support doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It's being directly tied to years and years of targeted welfare schemes from Nitish Kumar's government. They essentially created this dedicated beneficiary class. We're talking about things like direct cash transfers and women's employment programs. These things really empowered women financially, and they repaid that by showing up in massive numbers for the NDA.
All right, the second big factor was some really clever social engineering. See, for decades, Bihar politics has been all about these traditional voting blocks, and the most famous of them all? The MY combination. That's the core Muslim and Yada vote bank that has always been the foundation of the RJD's support.
So what did the NDA do? Their whole strategy was to build a much broader coalition to basically neutralize that MY factor. And they did it. They pulled in strong support from the extremely backward classes, the non-Yadav OBCs, and a whole bunch of Dalit communities. This completely diluted the opposition's main strength. And you can't forget Chirag Paswan's party. They were absolutely crucial, bringing their solid Paswan vote bank right into the NDA fold.
Now, this next slide perfectly illustrates the third factor, alliance management. It really was a tale of two fronts. On one side, you had the NDA, looking like a perfectly united front. They got their seat sharing done early, their messaging was consistent, and their votes transferred smoothly between partners. Then you look at the MGB, and it was a mess, a divided house. They launched their campaign late, they had these so-called friendly fights in several places, which just ended up confusing everyone and splitting the opposition vote.
Factor number 4 was all about controlling the narrative, and honestly, it was a masterclass. The entire election was boiled down to a really simple choice, a choice between two completely different eras. Sushasan Babu, which means Mr. Good Governance, against the lingering memory of the Jungle Raj.
So what is Jungle Raj? Well, it's the term people use to talk about the RJD's time and power back in the day, a period that a lot of folks associate with a breakdown in law and order. And the NDA, they were brilliant at bringing that memory back. They targeted women voters especially and framed Nitish Kumar as the guy who guarantees stability and security. And you know what? It was an incredibly powerful message that clearly worked.
And that brings us to the fifth and final factor, leadership. This was a classic 1-2 punch. You had Prime Minister Modi's massive national appeal, his whole Modi Ki Guarantee thing, building trust. And you paired that with Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's reputation for actually delivering on welfare schemes and his incredible political staying power. That combination, it turned out to be absolutely unbeatable.
Okay, so when you have a victory this massive, the next question is obvious, right? Who are the real winners? Let's take a look at who came out of this stronger and how this election has totally redrawn Bihar's political map.
You know, you could argue the biggest winner here is Nitish Kumar himself. A lot of people had completely written him off, but wow, what a comeback. He has totally solidified his spot as chief minister and proved to everyone, yet again, that he is still the guy at the center of Bihar politics. No question.
But it's also a huge win for Prime Minister Modi. This result is being seen as a massive public endorsement of his leadership on the national stage.
And it validates the whole BJP model of governance, this focus on welfare, showing it can deliver these kinds of knockout victories in the states, too.
And you have got to keep an eye on Chirag Baswan. Seriously, his party had a near-perfect strike rate. He didn't just win, he emerged from this election as a certified kingmaker. He's now established himself as a major Dalit leader, and in the new government, he's pretty much indispensable.
But hey, it's politics. For every winner, there's always a loser. So let's flip the coin and talk about whose strategies just didn't work, whose campaigns failed to connect.
First up, Tejaswi Yadav. He and his party, the RJD, just couldn't break out of that traditional MY base we mentioned earlier. And at the end of the day, that failure to build a bigger tent, a broader coalition, that's being pointed to as the #1 reason the entire opposition alliance got crushed.
Then there's the Congress Party. Oof. Their performance was, to put it mildly, pretty dismal. Just 6 seats. It just reinforces that narrative we keep hearing, that in these alliances, Congress often ends up being the weakest link, dragging the whole coalition down.
What about the famous strategist Prashant Kishore? Well, there was a ton of buzz and media hype around his new Jan Siraj campaign, but all that talk didn't translate into votes. His campaign failed to make any real impact and ended up with 0 seats. Not one.
And finally, you know who else lost big? The exit polls. Their credibility really took a hit. I mean, almost every single one predicted this super close, down-to-the-wire race, and not one of them, not a single one, saw this massive NDA landslide coming. It just goes to show you how tough it was to really get a read on the voters this year.
So that leaves us with one final question, right? What was the secret sauce here? What really won this election? Was it the welfare schemes that brought out that wave of women voters? Was it the clever social engineering that just rewrote the old rules of caste politics? Or was it simply the raw power of leadership? Well, the truth is, it probably wasn't just one thing. It was that powerful, potent mix of all three.